post-Attorney General stuff about Eliot Spitzer. And if you do that, what you get back to is the absolute terror with which Eliot Spitzer was regarded by people on Wall Street who were not used to getting caught for criminal behavior. Publications like The Street would just lead their articles about Spitzer with stuff like, New York Attorney General Eliot Spitzer, otherwise known as Wall Street's Dragon Slayer, wielded his legal sword today. And of course, that is hilarious in light of the prostitution scandal now. But at the time, there was nothing hookery about a statement like that at all. Wall Street was being perp-walked for stuff they were used to getting away with. They were being perp-walked by a crusading attorney general who they hated for it.
It is hard to overstate the magnitude of the betrayal. People who work their entire lives to save, to invest, to pay for their children's education were being told to invest in stocks that Merrill Lynch knew were going to decline in value. The sad thing is that for many, many years, people on Wall Street have known this has been going on. Nobody has done anything about it.
There has been massive wrongdoing, and we're going to act aggressively to address it.
Retail investors know there is no guaranteed return in the market. They know there is risk, but the one thing they deserve is honest advice and fair dealing.
And then he became governor of New York, and then there was the hooker scandal, and then there was the horrible resignation, and then there was the exile, and then there was the show on CNN that did really badly, and then he finished at CNN, and then what became of Eliot Spitzer after that is still sort of yet to be seen. But in the time that Eliot Spitzer has been going through all of that in his post-Attorney General life, bad behavior on Wall Street blew up the whole American economy. And at times, it was deja vu all over again, just without Eliot Spitzer in the role of prosecutor.
Look what your sales team was saying about Timberwolf. Boy, that Timberwolf was one deal. They sold that
Mr. Chairman.
deal. You didn't tell them you thought it was a deal?
Well, I didn't say that.
No. Who did? Your people, internally. You knew it was a deal, and that's what your email shows. Should Goldman Sachs be trying to sell a deal?
Well,
can you answer that one? Can you answer that one, yes or no?
Democratic Senator Carl Levin, who by all accounts otherwise never really swears in public, and as you saw there, nailing Goldman Sachs for having, in this case, not sold stock that it knew rhymed with bit, but selling mortgage deals. Big piles of mortgages that should have never been written and selling them as if they were gold, knowingly inflating the value of those things, which not only screwed over individual investors who they were selling them to as if they were valuable, but that fed and blew up the housing market and the American economy with it. They weren't just touting these mortgages to people. They were actually taking bets against them themselves because they knew what they were worth. And they knew it was a great bet to take against them. They knew they were, forgive me, they knew they were crap. They knew they were going to fail. They were set to make money when they failed. And they were selling them as if they were gold. And that is something very simple. That is fraud. That whole game did not cause collateral damage like the comparatively now rinky-dink bankruptcy of old Bernie's company. When Bernie's company went bankrupt, it was called WorldCom. At the time, it was the largest bankruptcy the country had ever seen. But looking back at it, that's rinky-dink compared to what we went through because of how Wall Street behaved after Bernie. The collateral damage after this time was not a company called WorldCom and everybody who was suckered into investing in it. The collateral damage this time was our country. That one Goldman Sachs deal that Carl Levin was swearing about made it to that Senate hearing. Charges were brought. It's still wending its way through the courts. But as for the overall fraud and recklessness and criminality on Wall Street that blew up Wall Street and blew up the entire American economy at the end of the Bush administration, the recklessness that necessitated the bailouts and that created the recession that we are still in, ProPublica did a good rundown on where are they now this week. What's happened to those folks? Who got frog-marched off of Wall Street for all of this? Well, among the mortgage originators, quote, few prosecutions have been brought against subprime mortgage lenders. A Department of Justice investigation into alleged fraud at Washington Mutual closed with no charges this summer. A criminal investigation into activities at Countrywide, quote, fizzled out earlier this year. Deutsche Bank is still under investigation. Well, how about the people who turned American mortgages, American homes, into casino chips? Quote, overall, the banks and individuals involved in these deals haven't been convicted on criminal charges. The civil suits against them have produced fines that aren't very big compared to the profits they made in the lead up to the financial crisis. Okay, how about the CEOs of the big investment banks? A probe of Lehman Brothers, quote, stalled this spring. Merrill Lynch was sold to Bank of America, quoting ProPublica here. As for the executives who helped crash Merrill Lynch, they walked away with millions. Some still hold senior positions at prominent financial firms. Republicans want the next presidential election to be decided on the basis of whether or not the economy is bad. Because the catastrophe of Wall Street exploding in 2008 was so bad that you're pretty much guaranteed the economy is still going to stink next November. So Republicans want that to be the basis on which people vote. On the other hand, Democrats want the presidential election to be decided based on the question of who is taking the side of the American people, who's taking the side of the 99%, since the Republicans are very happily identified with the 1%. They're happy to be seen as representing not only the richest people in the country, but Wall Street specifically. But where is the crusading defender of the people unafraid to stand up for people against Wall Street? To stand up for people who Wall Street is taking for suckers, which frankly is all of us now. There have not been any perp walks off Wall Street after this crash, after this man-made disaster. Who is taking them on? Who is even investigating them? It turns out, in a lot of ways, in a lot of important ways, it is guys at the state level. Again, it's not Eliot Spitzer, and the people who are doing this are not nationally famous. One of them was here earlier this week, New York State's new Attorney General, Eric Schneiderman. You're going to meet another one of them tonight. That's next.